Keeping it honest.
You are fake news.
Keeping it real.
I want to smoke some pot.
And keeping it libertarian.
I'm a libertarian for life.
These are the Fakertarians.
My superpower is being honest. I'll eat your ass. I will.
It is the Fakertarians setting sail for another voyage on the bumpy seas of this wild ride of life, trying to sail into that great port of liberty and freedom. And your host on this May 30th, 2020 show, John Hudak. John.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Fakertarians podcast, episode 3. I'm your host, John Hudak, with Brian Hagan, Jeremy Kantorowicz, and Randy Weber. Today we have on Sam Coppinger of Libertarian Memes for Neoliberal Teens. He's been a kind of a mainstay in our discussion group for a long time, so it'll be fun to have him on. How you doing, Sam?
I am doing fine.
Great. So I think what's on everyone's mind right now is the serious question. What are you going to name your pony?
Yeah, that's just the kind of question I expected to hear from this.
No, we're going to get to some real stuff. So starting out, I was thinking we can talk Amash a little bit. So you were a very vocal supporter of Justin Amash's presidential run, short-lived presidential run. Do you think you made the right move in dropping out?
It's hard to say because it depends on the frame of reference of what the right move is, whether you're talking the right move for the country, the right move for the party, the right move for him as an individual politician. And I think there's different answers in each of those cases, or at least between some of them. Everybody knows that he was never going to win running. That just wasn't going to happen. He maintained that, in that short time he was running, he always maintained he had a path to victory and that he wouldn't run if he didn't see that. But that was never the case. He was absolutely never going to win. But that was not the point for me. The point for me with Amash and why I was so invested in his run and why I am so disappointed that he withdrew from the race is because I saw him as the path to legitimacy for the Libertarian Party, essentially. You have, in 2016, we had Gary and Weld. For whatever you want to say about anything the rest of them, that's not the point right now. The point is that they are both experienced two-term governors, experienced politicians. They were, had the credibility as candidates. If they had actually won somehow, they would have been ready to do the job when they took office. And that's the same case with Amash, except unlike Gary, Amash doesn't also have the liability of seeming like a goofball. And I love Gary. There's a Gary thing on my wall back there that you could probably see in frame, but Gary had issues with media and isn't a good speaker and doesn't give off a vibe of professionalism and knowledge that is helpful. But Amash does, and I think Amash could have already. We saw in 2016, Gary was getting about 12 or 13% at his highest point, and that was right before the debate announcements were announced. And if we had gotten to 15, he would have actually been in the debates. And the fact that Gary got to 13 despite his fallbacks, I think Amash could have easily gotten to that 15, gotten in the debates, and everybody knows that he would have completely obliterated Biden and Trump in debate. He is so much better spoken than them and has so much more principle to appeal to and knows the facts of issues way more than they do. And I think that his support could have easily increased from that. I think like if Amash had actually run this year and if he had been paired with a similarly experienced and credible vice presidential candidate, I think anywhere from 5 to maybe even 20% of the popular vote would have been possible. And if that had happened, that elevates the Libertarian Party immediately to a place of a legitimate third party status, something like the Liberal Democrats in the UK, where they're probably still not going to win an election anytime soon, but they're a very serious force in the national politics, and that just isn't going to happen now.
Did you have any reservations about the fact that Amash said that he wasn't inherently against a border wall, or the whole thing where he talked about the possibility of banning abortion after 3 days?
Yeah, I don't agree with those positions, especially just how extreme the abortion one is. And I know that he doesn't support open borders, but I think that a lot of his critics misunderstood the actual nuance of his position on immigration. He is against illegal immigration, which everybody says that they are. Everybody, in the Republican Party says that they are. But unlike him, he sees the solution to that as making it easier to immigrate legally rather than just keeping immigrants out entirely. And so, anybody who doesn't support completely 100% open borders, which I do, but the vast majority of people do not. Anybody who doesn't support that supports having at least some kind of a border security system and checkpoints and ports of entry in some way. And I think by the wall, that's essentially what he meant by that, which, again, I do support 100% open borders, but I don't think that it's a completely unrealistic thing for a libertarian candidate to not do that. I mean, the position that Amash held when he was interviewed by Nick Gillespie for Reason, he endorsed a essentially Ellis Island system. And I think that anybody who endorses a system like that is plenty good enough on the issue of immigration to be a libertarian candidate, even if it doesn't go as far as I would like it to go.
I actually want to add something to that. I agree with what you're saying, and I think it's also important to recognize that even though the Democrats have kind of positioned themselves as like the party for immigrants, Amash's stance on immigration is still better than Biden's. It's better than Trump's.
So. Yeah. Biden's the VP for the deporter in chief.
Right. So if all three of them were serious candidates against each other, he would be the ideal immigrant candidate still, regardless of that. And I think that is important.
I mean, it would still worry me a bit to have a guy up there who says he basically in his statement, he said he's okay with a border wall under certain circumstances. And I don't know. I would still have supported Amash if he was in the general election, but I still would have some issues.
He still voted against funding Trump's border wall, which I think is a positive step.
Yeah, but I think he gave some different reasons for that.
It might have been because of the level of extremity, maybe like how much of it the strain it would be on the budget. Maybe it was also stuff like that, which it shouldn't be the only or main reason for opposing it. But those are still good reasons, and he still did oppose it.
Yeah, if he had continued to run as a libertarian candidate, I don't think he would have. I think that wall comment was a mistake, and I don't think he would have said something like that as a libertarian candidate, because I think he actually is still a member of the party, which I think is crazy, because if he's not the candidate, it's just weird that he would make this huge jump to the Libertarian Party, not run, and then still stay in it. But anyway, I think he has enough respect for the party and its platform to not advocate positions that are blatantly opposite its platform.
Well, and let me say this, his takes on Twitter over the past couple of days with all of the rioting going on have been absolutely fantastic. I have a problem sometimes of wanting purity in libertarianism. I think a lot of us kind of fall into that too. But then there's also that pragmatic side of me where I did look at Amash and think, well, would he be the one to kind of push us through, like you were saying, Sam? And then I see these tweets, and they're fantastic. He's doing a fantastic job of really pissing off Liberty Hangout. I know he's angered that crowd a lot. So that right there to me is kind of winning. So I have had these reservations today thinking, man, I do wish he would have stayed in it. Maybe right now would have been the right time for him to really push through and be kind of your, I guess you could say, button down conservative type of libertarian who also really gets that strong messaging out in areas like this rioting and police brutality and the racism inherent within our system and within the police system. So I don't know, I kind of have mixed feelings, but I am really enjoying what he has to say on this particular issue.
And that's another thing also that I want to add to is, I literally just came from a George Floyd protest. So that's very important to me with any candidate that I'm willing to support, is that, they're not going to be an opponent of Black rights and Black people. And we've definitely had a ton of those in the Libertarian Party. It's gross and it's horrible, and it's not unique specifically to libertarians, but it is true and it's important. And probably the most successful libertarian from a political standpoint ever is also a huge racist, and that's a big problem. And it's to get back to the point that you said, we're talking about Gary Johnson just to share a little bit, Gary Johnson's probably the reason that I'm a libertarian, which I think is not something most people would expect to hear, because most people know him from him sounding like an idiot. But when I came from being a Democrat, and I was basically kind of like a milquetoast. I don't really know what I stand for. I just kind of repeat Democrat talking points. I was happy to see a first black president, like that kind of thing. And then Gary Johnson's arguments, I had libertarian leanings, like from a moral standpoint. I was against forcing people to do things against their will as like a general idea. And I think most people think they are, but I didn't really have like a practical application for that. At least I thought. And then I started hearing him talk about things like the government's subsidizing of things like healthcare is making it more expensive. And I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like artificial demand, that makes sense. And when I started looking into it, him seeming reasonable and him making logical points and not just like screaming that taxes are rape helped bring me, as somebody who didn't already agree with those things, into it. And if we want to make the world a freer place, we have to do things that will actually accomplish that. Freedom has to look like something tangible. So I think we should support people that have a means of doing that, as long as they're not also direct opponents of it in other important ways, like the way that Ron Paul was.
Okay, so I don't want to spend the entire time on Amash just because we have like a million things to cover. But so the day Amash dropped out, Sam, you went on a pretty lengthy rant about Vermin Supreme. I have a little bit of it right here. In that rant, you said that Vermin and his supporters don't actually care about kids in cages or innocent people on death row or homelessness or police brutality, and that they only care about their fucking selves and their own entertainment and self-righteousness. So I endorsed Vermin for president about a week before the primary, and I endorsed his vice presidential candidate, Spike Cohen, maybe a couple months before that. Do you think I care about those things?
In the abstract, I think that you do. Your actions and the strategy that you support proves to me that you value the optics of opposing those things more than actually overcoming them. And that's true of Vermin and his supporters as well.
Couldn't I just I think it was a decent strategy to take, but couldn't I just be wrong in my strategy? Couldn't I genuinely believe that it's a decent strategy to take?
If you do, you should get help.
Brian?
Well, I think we have a special guest here that's going to join us.
I hear that
right
there's
now.
a very grumpy boy here named Sam. Hey, Sam.
Hey, Spike.
How you doing?
All right.
What have you been up to this week?
Not much.
That's terrific. I got the vice presidential nomination. I don't know if you had heard about that.
I heard, yeah.
I got 533 delegates. I think that's the final count that I got. Landslide victory. How are you doing, man?
All right.
That's great.
Sam, does that trouble you at all? Like, what are your thoughts and feelings on that right now? Do you want to lash out? Do you want to scream? Do you want to cry? I mean, tell us what's in your mind right now, Sam.
Well, the thing is that I am no longer considering myself a member of the Libertarian Party and no longer feel troubled or weighed down by the irrelevant struggles of it and its lack of will to achieve anything. So
Sam.
I don't really feel like I have much stake in the party anymore or what it does. And so the declining reputability of it doesn't really bother me very much anymore.
Sam, if we do better than Gary and Bill did, then what?
I'll jump off a building. That's not going to happen. There's literally absolutely zero chance that will happen.
Well,
absolutely zero.
I'm not going to hold you to that because we're definitely going to do better. And I definitely do not want to see even a harm come to even the smallest hair on your head there. I want to break something down, Sam. And it's why I got the nomination. It's why Vermin Supreme and I won the presidential recruitment competition, getting nearly twice as many recruits
which
to the
was
party,
like 15
and
people.
it was over 100, and it was more than double what every other presidential candidate combined got. Now, shout out to Congressman Mosh for getting that one. But here's the thing, guys, and we've seen it time and again. It's why Vermin Supreme made it to the final round on a promise to give everyone ponies. Satire works when appropriately used among people who think that the system is such a joke that they are not the least bit interested in hearing from politicians. They don't want to hear what any politician has to say. The very second they show up and go, I'm such and such with the such and such party, and I'd like you to know, they completely shut it out. They're already done with it. 46% did not vote in 2016. And the trope that, they won't vote because they're just lazy and they don't want to vote. That's not true. If we ran platforms on ending Social Security, if everyone involved in politics ran platforms on ending Social Security and Medicare and screw the rich, and we're going to raise taxes on the rich and give it all, or screw the old elderly, and we're going to raise taxes on the elderly and give it all to the youth, old people eventually would stop voting because they'd realize that what they were voting for was not happening, and they'd stop voting. And then we go, well, we don't need to worry about campaigning for the elderly. They don't even vote. These are disaffected, disillusioned, and marginalized people, and many of them are so disgusted with the entire system that they have no interest in hearing from a politician. And their belief is inherently libertarian. Republicans and Democrats are screwing them over. The government is screwing them over. It doesn't even make sense for them to vote for any of them. The problem is we can't reach them until we use something different. And that's where the nonlinear messaging comes in. We come in, we use entertainment to get their attention. And now they're paying attention. They're enjoying the fact that we're making the reporters that are interviewing us or whoever's coming there on a serious fashion look foolish because they want them to look foolish for once. And then now we have their attention. Now we're not just some politician throwing a bunch of crap at them. We're entertainers that are entertaining them. So their cognitive defenses go down. Now they actually want to hear what we have to say. They hear that there's some kind of underlying message there, but they don't care. They're just being entertained. And over time, they actually become intrigued. What is this all about? Why are you doing this? Why do these otherwise seemingly reasonable grown people, why are they engaging in all of this fantasy? What is this about? And then we hit them with the message. And it's the boot pill method, whether people like it or don't, has worked. It brought people into the party. It got us into the final round. It got me the VP nomination. And again, I have always said that we will pivot to seriousness when appropriate. I am going to be running an overwhelmingly serious campaign, but in the areas and the spaces where satire is appropriate, because people do not want to hear a political message, we will use it.
I think that is so beautiful. And Spike, along with this whole VP thing, if that doesn't work out for you, you should really just become some sort of a motivational speaker. Maybe just start writing a whole bunch of books. Like,
you can do it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you too can do it. You can succeed if you put your mind to it. Now, a quick question.
I felt like a pat on the back from a dad.
after you heard all that, Sam, are you reconsidering your idea of joining the Constitution Party and hanging out with Chuck Baldwin?
Wait, you're joining the Constitution Party?
No.
You're better than that. What was the party that Max Abrams, the Veterans Party? That's what he went to. Which like Constitution Party Light.
The Prohibition Party.
I'm sorry, but the banner says otherwise. The banner says Sam Coppinger joins the Constitution Party. Who am I to argue with the banner? So it must be fact now.
So I want to give Sam a chance because I went on an impressive rant there. I want to hear your feelings on this, Sam. I want to hear your feelings. Talk to us about this.
I agree with literally nothing that you said whatsoever at all. I think Vermin makes a disgrace of actual issues that people are facing. And like, I mean everything that I said in that long post.
Okay, so the numbers of who we're bringing in are irrelevant.
No, it means nothing. 100 people is literally nothing. There's no difference between bringing in 150 people and bringing in 0 people.
But it was 100 people. No, but we didn't
nothing.
We didn't just bring in 100 people. In a single month's time, using a specific link, we brought in 100 people. The data we were getting from LP.
You could bring in 10,000 people and it's not significant.
Okay, but then then the problem isn't us. The problem is the entire party. Because again, more than double what every other candidate brought in, including our, vaunted serious candidates that you are saying were the ones that we could bring in, that we needed to go behind.
Well, I am leaving the party, so yeah, the issue is with the whole party. And even besides that, I'm not concerned nearly as much with party membership numbers as I am with votes. That's what matters, is votes, is getting candidates elected into office so that they can change policy. That needs to be the goal of the Libertarian Party, and it has been proven to me that is not something that the Libertarian Party, by and large, is even interested in, and that is why I am leaving the party, because the party does not want to be a political party. It wants to be an activist organization.
Okay, and what party are you going to?
I have no idea. Absolutely no idea.
And that will be more effective.
Hold on, Spike. I just want to ask a question to Spike that's relevant to this. Okay, so as the VP nominee, and with Joe as the presidential nominee,
right?
Joe doesn't have a comedy angle. She has a purely serious angle.
Right.
You have somewhat of a mix. Are you going to be incorporating a mix of serious and comedy with her as your campaign strategy?
My goal, I have always been running a largely serious campaign. Now, adjacent to Vermin, obviously, when Vermin is doing satire and I'm there with him, I'm engaging in the satire with him, but I'm also doing the seriousness. So Vermin's bringing them in with the entertainment, and then I'm landing them with the actual libertarian policy and philosophy. That's how it worked. We called it the Vermin and Spike Show, and we did it in numerous Zoom calls with college campuses. Got a ton of people signed up to the party, even after the competition ended. Still bringing in people by the dozens. Okay, and I know Sam thinks that by the dozens means nothing, but those are people that are force multipliers and go out and also bring people in. So I will say it might not be as effective as leaving and not knowing what I'm going to do after that, but it certainly has been effective in bringing more people in than anyone else was able to. Now, with that said, I have always been campaigning seriously. If you watch any of my debate performances, if you watch my speeches during the actual convention, if you watch the first joint interview that we did with Dan Fishman with the Libertarian Party on their main Facebook and YouTube, and that was on not last night, the night before. So that was on Saturday. That was on Thursday night. It worked. And from a fundraising standpoint, it's worked too, because by my going on by posting a couple times, by the way, the link, donate.com or donate.joj2020.com. And with that, sharing that a handful of times, I got over $3,000 in $5 and $10 donations, in small donations. Again, not as effective as Sam's plan to not be sure where he's going, but still effective. And so what we are doing here is we are using a largely serious way of campaigning with the idea that, and we are going to have Vermin doing some of the campaigning too, that the Jorgensen Cohen team is very happy to have Vermin involved in campaigning in appropriate spaces. So the delegates have made it clear. They want a serious campaign, but they also understand that a touch of satire can be helpful. That's why the delegates picked Joe, and that's why they picked me. And so that's what we're going to be doing. And the satirical elements to it are obviously largely going to be left to me and to, Vermin and whatever I'm doing in regards to that. But that's the goal. Yeah. Run a serious campaign, talk about serious issues, and apply satire in the audiences and the spaces that are necessary. Good, effective campaigning works by meeting people where they are. Not just literally in their spaces, but from their precepts. And if the precept of the person I am speaking with is that they don't give a shit about politics, they don't want to hear one more politician say one more thing about one more subject, it would be derelict of me to go into that space and go, yeah, but I'm different. My name's Spike Cohen, and I'm with the Libertarian Party, and I'd like to talk to you about self-ownership and why the Republicans and Democrats haven't been working. They don't care. I have completely screwed up that opportunity. So in those spaces, absolutely. The entire rest of the time, I will be campaigning seriously, which is what my plan was all along.
Okay, so mostly serious, but you're applying comedy in areas where the people seem like that's what they want.
When it's appropriate, yes, exactly. That's the goal.
That's valid.
So Sam, if you obviously disagree with Spike's idea of how the LP should work, what would your ideal Libertarian Party look like?
Justin Amash and Gary Johnson and Bill Weld before he was a traitor.
Would anarchists be allowed, or radicals?
Not a traitor.
I would want my Libertarian Party would explicitly support the existence of a government, and then whatever anarchists choose to do from that point onward is their decision.
Does the fact that the party was founded by mostly anarchists and some radical minarchists not factor into your vision for the party you decided to leave for nothing?
Absolutely not at all, no.
Okay. So then that's why you left and have no idea where you're going.
Yes.
That's fair. Okay.
That's interesting. Yeah, I guess, Sam, and you and I have argued online quite a few times. I think we all have, but I've got to know. I just want to cut into your brain for just a little bit. Why? What is the opposition to anarchists? Do you have? It seems to me like you have this preconceived notion, like it would be Burning Man each and every day, which I personally think would be awesome, especially if we can do acid all the time. But that kind of seems to be what your thought process is with that. Am I right in thinking that, or can you explain your dislike?
Yeah, I have the same question too. I mean, as somebody who identifies as an anarchist, maybe not an ANCAP anymore like I used to, but I've seen you mention, general distaste for our types, and yeah, I guess I never really have gotten into why.
Yeah.
Are you asking my problem with anarchists or anarchism?
I'm just going to say that I'm just going to go after Sam's answer. So I just wanted to, I'm just kind of like piecing out now, but I want to hear Sam's answer first before.
Bye, Randy. Thanks for the question. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, of course, bro.
So problem with anarchists or problem with anarchism? Because they're different things.
Well, okay. Let's start with anarchists.
My problem with anarchists is largely what I said in the Vermin post, that I don't think they actually care about anything other than their intellectual purity and feeling self-righteous about the positions that they take. They claim that they're so opposed to the use of force and all these different things. They want to, deconstruct all systems of oppression and hierarchy. But if you're not ever achieving any of those things, all of those words mean nothing. Having an anarchist left-wing podcast and talking about how horrible the state is and how we need to abolish police does not accomplish anything. That does not stop black people from getting killed in the streets by police. That does not stop kids from being put in concentration camps on the border. Just talking about anarchism and talking about how bad things are and how we should get rid of government and everything would be better accomplishes absolutely nothing and never will. And I don't think anarchists actually care about anything other than themselves and their own purity and their image and how great they are and how much better they are than all the sheeple. That is what I don't think anarchists care about anything but themselves.
So then, given the fact that you have said lots of things which have thus far not been effective, and you are leaving to not be sure where you're going, which means that probably won't be effective, wouldn't, using your logic, that mean that you also don't care?
I'm not a party. I'm a person who's sick of my time being wasted by a supposed party that has no interest in actually accomplishing what political parties exist for.
But that's actually how we feel as well, which is why we're pushing a radical platform. So what I'm asking is it possible that if instead of this positing that you've made that we don't care, it's just that we have a difference of opinion as to the best way moving forward? And by the way, I say this as an anarchist who is running on Joe Jorgensen's platform of, among other things, having America become one giant Switzerland, armed and neutral, which means that obviously as a means of harm reduction, at least some anarchists, at least me, is okay with that as a transitional step, if nothing else, to end the wars and the harms that are happening as a result of that. But what I'm asking you is, you have taken the leap of saying that because thus far we have not had political success, neither have the minarchists or the Prags or anyone else in the party. There's been limited success at the local level, but nothing at the federal or statewide level. Given that, using your own logic that because we have not had those successes, that means we don't care, what should we take to mean from the fact that you've said many things, but have also not had any electoral success?
It's not about me or you. It's about the fact that who does win elections? The major parties who run on an actual platform of issues and appeal to people. And even though their positions are terrible, they actually try to win elections. That is the goal, is to win elections. I have seen so many people in libertarian spaces saying that we're not going to win elections. We shouldn't try. That's not the point. Let's just get the message out. We're not trying to win elections.
I've never said that.
I have heard hundreds of other people say that. I think John says that.
I would. Oh, let me just defend myself.
Yeah, go
for a
ahead.
second.
Yeah, go
Of
ahead.
course,
I mean,
John.
I think the first and foremost, it's about spreading the message of liberty. But I mean, it's not like I don't actually want to win an election. Like, if I could win an election, like, yeah, I'd take it.
Yeah, you take it, but is that your goal? Is your goal to win elections, or is your goal to spread anarchist?
No,
propaganda?
my goal is liberty. Like, with full stop right there.
This is something that I take issue with too, is people who claim to support liberty but don't have or support any rational path toward actually achieving it, and it's all just in the abstract.
What did running Bill Weld do?
Got us the highest vote total in the history of the party.
But what did that do?
If we had been able to build on that momentum by like running a mosh, we could have increased that vote total and built the credibility of the party up. This isn't going to happen in one election. We're not going to change the world in one election. Okay. It's about building up sustained credibility to boost the reputation of the party as a credible, legitimate third option for people, not just something that runs people with no experience, who's nobody's ever heard of, running on a platform of anarchism that appeals to nobody. Okay,
so putting aside the fact that Justin Amash did not want to build credibility or build something upon which someone else could do. He explicitly said the reason he was not running was because he did not see an avenue for him to win the general presidential election, which means that he was not worried about, what you're saying, building up, getting to 5% or to 10% or whatever. It was either if he could not get the, 34, 35, 40%, whatever he felt like he needed to be able to get the election, if he didn't think there was a viable path, then he wasn't going to do it. And that's certainly his right, and he can do that. And we've said many times, we were saying this with Team Supreme, and we're saying this now with Team Jorgensen Cohen. If he decides to run for re-election in his congressional seat, we will back him 100%. We would love to campaign next to him. I think what we have here is a situation where, because we have a disagreement in strategy, you are taking the next step to say that we don't care and that we don't want any good things to happen. Sam, if we're ever going to win elections in this cycle or any other, we have to change the cultural conversation. It is what it is. Because if we show up and simply say what the Republicans and Democrats are saying in order to get elected, now what happens? Now we get elected and what? We either become just like them, or possibly even worse, we just expose the fact that we were lying to them and start doing all this other stuff and ensure that we never get elected or taken seriously again. All of our wins are going to be completely erased, not just at the federal level, but all the way down. People will say, yeah, I remember those libertarians. They said they just wanted to make some reforms. And then they came in and started doing all these wholesale changes. And we even were worried because that's what their platform says. And now look what they've done. We'll never trust them again. And it would take generations to go overcome that. Why would we not instead, in the same time that you're saying, building up something, building up the credibility, why would we not be building credibility by changing the cultural conversation so that people find libertarianism and the libertarian platform to be credible? Why instead would we focus on this idea of telling libertarian activists that everything that they do is a complete waste of time, because the best way to get to the top of our ticket and the top of our party is to use the cheat code of running as a Republican and then come over when we decide to take one last run before retiring, and then you're credible? And how is that not signaling both internally and externally that both we and our platform are completely irrelevant and all we care about is some nebulous idea of respectability?
We and our platform are completely irrelevant to national politics. That's the fact of the matter. And yes, we should have been kissing the feet of Justin Amash for blessing us with his presence. We have no credibility as a party. We have nothing to offer. We have no good reputation. He's sinking his own reputation as an elected official by running with our party. And then people in the party have the audacity of criticizing him and driving him out when he is the greatest blessing to the party that we could have ever seen.
So you don't agree with our platform, you don't like how it was founded, and you think that we're
irrelevant. I didn't say I don't like the platform, I said it's irrelevant. I agree with almost everything in the platform.
But the platform was created by anarchists and radical minarchists.
Okay.
So you're good with that anarchy/radical minarchy platform?
For the most part, I agree with probably at least 85 or 90% of the platform, which is tremendously more than I agree with the platforms of any other party with.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I can't say I agree with anything 100%, but I agree with it probably around 90%. And that's for a party platform, that's good enough for me. I guess the point I'm making is applying your logic to this idea that we don't care. would mean that you don't care.
How?
Because you also haven't had electoral victories.
I'm not saying that you don't care because you haven't been successful. I'm saying that you don't care because you support a strategy that can never be successful. There's no path to success of stripping nude and talking about cheese bread and ponies and badgers. That is not going to win an election. It's abundantly clear your goal is not to win an election. It's to spread some message and have fun and just throw your arms in the air and say, oh, isn't everybody else terrible? That's just what a mockery. That isn't it just bad that these people oppress us and things? Isn't that just silly? And let's make fun of them. Everybody else forces you to wear a seatbelt. We're going to talk about forcing you to brush your teeth. And everybody else promises free things all the time. We're going to talk about giving you a free pony. Ha ha. Aren't we just so smart? We're the only people who have ever noticed that politicians make promises that they don't follow through on.
And that has brought in a tremendous. It's brought how many? You recruited how many people to the party again? I just want to make sure.
I've never tried to recruit people to the party yet.
Okay, but so then you don't care, because again, you said that by not having any path to success or any demonstration of success, then that means that you don't care. You've just said you haven't even tried.
Because
so then you don't care.
Recruiting members again is not the
okay.
Goal.
What is it?
The goal is getting votes and getting candidates elected.
And since you care, what is it you have done, and where is the tangible metric-driven success that you can show us?
I am not a candidate. I am not trying to.
But you didn't just say
myself as anything.
You didn't just say candidates. You said anarchists, including ones that are not candidates. You as
then I supported a strategy for the party that I believed would actually result in electoral victories. That's what I've done.
But it has.
And no, you're going to compare your recruiting numbers when I haven't tried to do anything like that. I feel bad trying to ask people in good faith to join a party that I know is filled with lunatics and people who strip on stage and people who have no goal of winning. How can I ask people in good faith who trust me and my opinion? How can I put myself in my opinion and tell people to do something that I don't believe in and that I wouldn't expect them to respect?
But you said you did believe in it.
I believed that we could overcome this problem, and I no longer believe that we can.
So I just have a point about or actually a question for you about the whole anarchist thing. Like, we know you don't like anarchists, obviously, but you said around 2 months ago that you'd prefer Nancy Pelosi, Ocasio-Cortez, and George W. Bush over any anarchist. Does that still hold true for you? And why do you think that?
That's clearly phrased in the way to make me look as bad as possible, but the element of that is that I fundamentally see the preservation of liberal democracy as the absolutely most important thing in the world to the cause of liberty or libertarianism or anything even adjacent to it. Without that basis, that foundation of liberal democracy, I don't think anything even remotely resembling libertarianism is possible whatsoever. So in my mind, the preservation of liberal democracy and having people in office who believe that it is absolutely vital to preserve liberal democracy is more important than anything on the positions or on the issues, because however good you are on the issues, if you do not favor maintaining and preserving the structure and system of liberal democracy, nothing that you say matters. We will collapse into absolute chaos and either go down the road of fascism, communism, or anarchy. And I know that you love the sound of anarchy, but I do not, and I do not think that as great as anarchy sounds on paper and in theory, I think in theory anarchism is completely the only logical perspective for a libertarian in theory, but in practice, I think it would be horrible. It would be I think anarchy in practice would be as bad as fascism or communism.
Yeah. Well, I can't even disagree with you there. I mean, look, we can't even get people to wear a mask at a Walmart at this point in time. So, the anarchist society in theory with, people that can't wear a mask at Walmart. I mean, yeah, how is that going to work out? Yeah.
The question of anarchy. I'm sorry, did I just interrupt something?
No, you're good. Go ahead with it.
The question of anarchy is one of less than. So, for example, people say, well, when has there ever been an anarchist society that has been self-sustaining? To which usually I just respond by saying, When has there ever been a statist society that didn't end up devolving into something terrible? All that aside, that's a quick throw off for someone. But the longer answer to that is we don't know if a sustainable anarchy is even possible. And we certainly have never seen a situation where a organized society, voluntarily or not, has simply gone into a mode and remained there in perpetuity. So even if we are able to slowly over time work our way towards increasingly voluntary structures and dismantling systems of oppression and replacing them with voluntary, largely horizontal or at least decentralized voluntary structures, there's no guarantee that we won't end up reverting back to the status quo or partially back to the status quo. With each generation, with each person, with each event, with each incident, there's simply no way. And especially if you take it, worldwide, there's, even if I could snap my fingers and make government go away, there's no way to ensure that 7.5 billion people are all going to voluntarily organize their societies in the exact same way that will lead to libertopia in our time. With that said, if we know that systems of the state are inherently abusive, inequitable, and harmful as a direct result of the fact that they are systemized aggression, that because if I can simply take from the four of you as I see fit, I'm not going to be a good steward of what I have, and you conversely aren't going to be a good steward of what I've taken of what you have, because I could simply take it from you at any time. And the systems of the state are simply a monopoly in which a presumed authority presumes the ability to simply take from you as it sees fit, which means aggression doesn't work, and not just from a moral perspective, but from a utilitarian one. Then that means we should be working towards as close to our ideal as possible, which is why, again, I am running on a ticket of giant Switzerland. That is not anarchy. It is a step away from our ever creeping march towards tyranny. And, to run on system, ideas like controlling, ending the police to prison industrial complex, demilitarizing the police. These are not anarchy. They are harm reduction steps in the midst of a centralized, abusive, and harmful police state that is abusing all of us, but is especially abusing marginalized communities like communities of color, the poor, gender and sexual minorities, religious minorities, ethnic minorities, and immigrants, and so forth, that we are working towards that. And I think that might be, are there some anarchists that say, listen, if it's not pure anarchy, I want nothing to do with it? Yes. But are there also anarchists like myself and others that are trying to work within this party and through other means to try to do harm reduction with the idea that it's not going to be 100% of what we want? Yes. And I think, Sam, at times when you look at our, purist ideology, you're not looking also at the fact that we are trying to do harm reduction just like you are. Even if what our end goal looks like is entirely different than yours, we're still trying to do harm reduction. And it doesn't mean we don't care. It means that we are just different in our opinion than you. And that's okay. I'm never going to say you don't care. Even though right now you've left the party not sure where you're going, not sure what you're going to do, but you certainly don't want to be a part of this. You have every right to do that. I'm not going to say you don't care. I'm going to say I disagree with where you think things are going and what you think is the best way to do it.
Sam, any rebuttal?
That went on for ages. There's 100 different things I could respond to. What am I supposed to pick?
Well, let me jump in here real quick then. I think Spike has a good point. And let me ask you this, Sam. Are you concerned that if the goal is anarchy, that it's just suddenly going to be thrust into that, and suddenly we're going to have like this Mad Max sort of society where we're all wearing assless chaps and riding around on motorcycles? Or, that seems to me like what your concern and others who hate anarchy, that's what they think it's going to turn into. And I think what Spike is saying is it's not going to get there overnight. My personal belief is if you set anarchy as the goal to work towards, then you do end up incrementally with great steps of, as Spike said, harm reduction getting there. I always say I'm an anarchist philosophically, but I'm certainly a minarchist pragmatically. And I think a lot of people would join me in that. If you think the Libertarian Party is a party of anarchists, all of the big mad anger that they get over the slightest thing, like, a guy not wearing a shirt at the beach. I don't think the party is even close to anarchy entirely. So I don't see why you can't find a home there, even if some people do espouse that view.
I do not feel that I have a home in the Libertarian Party, because the fact that the Justin Amash was the chance for the party to show that when push comes to shove, it has the will and the capability to leverage its assets in a way to achieve the greatest possible result for future success. And it failed in that regard spectacularly. It completely wasted, screwed away the best chance it will ever get and has ever had in its history.
He didn't want to do that.
He was driven out by he specifically cited in his thread announcing that he was leaving the nonsense in the LNC with this stupid stuff of Harlos that wasn't going to sign off unless there was an in-person convention, and people couldn't even agree on when a convention would be. And there's one convention, but now there's going to be another one that's supposed to be in person. And the in-person one, if it even happens, if it's even legal, is going to completely destroy the reputation of the party, and any outcome from it's going to be a sham, because the only people who are going to show up is right-wing lunatic Josh Smith supporters who think that the virus is a fraud.
He cited that alongside the virus and the pandemic and the lockdowns as reasons why he believed that he could not win the general election and therefore had no interest in running. He did not want to do what you're talking about. He had no interest in it. And I'm not saying he's good or bad for doing that. I'm saying, because right now he disagrees with you. He wants to get people to join the Libertarian Party. And I assume he's probably going to try to run in 2024. And we will have a completely different conversation than we did this time, because he will have spent the last 4 years trying to grow the party, if that's the case. But he did not want to do what you said, Sam. You're saying we missed a great opportunity. He did not want to do that. He said, I am here to run to win this election. And if I believe that I cannot win this election, then I'm not going to run. So no, the Libertarian Party did not give up on an opportunity to do what you're talking about. He said he chose to not do that thing because he didn't want to do that. He wanted to run to win. And again, I'm not bashing him. I'm saying he didn't want to do what you're talking about. So it was not a lost opportunity except by him.
His stated reasoning on this whole I'm only going to run if I think I can win thing, I don't believe that, because if
now we're doing the Donald Trump I know what he meant thing.
It's not that I know what he meant. It's
here's what he really meant.
He never actually thought he was going to win.
He wasn't going to really shoot anyone on Fifth Avenue. He was just saying he could if he wanted to.
Is Justin Amash Q?
You got to trust the plan, man.
Yeah, maybe we have just hit upon something massive here that is just completely unexpected on this little podcast. We have now exposed that Justin.
I'm going to Google this. If my computer shuts down from me typing in Justin Amash QAnon, then we all know this is true.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I just got this really weird feeling. I think that we've all worked together here today to really expose something deep and dark within our system. Sam, I didn't realize you had such a conspiracy side, but thank you for bringing that out.
Where's the headline on the thing down at the bottom? Sam QAnon. Sam wants to trust the QAnon.
Yeah, I need to. Sam Coppinger here. I'm typing that. This is in real time now, y'all who are watching. Sam Coppinger, trust the plan. There we go. Okay. Now that is up there and it's fully representative of Sam's thinking. There we go. Perfect.
So guys, listen, Sam, I love you very much. I know that we're going to get through this together, and you're a good guy, and I don't want to give you a hard time anymore. So I want to say this. Because I do have to go and do big campaign stuff because I'm going to win this election. What I want to tell you, Sam, is you are an incredibly principled young man. I think that you are a brilliant person, and I think that your heart is 100% in the right place, and I support you in what you are doing, even when we disagree. And I am perfectly fine with someone, especially someone who is, I think we often forget how young you are because you are so smart and articulate, someone especially who is younger, who is under the impression that, we do not actually support, don't care or whatever else how you worded it. I disagree with your opinion, but I understand where you're coming from and I respect it. And I think you're a good guy and I love you. And Libertarian Memes for Neoliberal Teens is, of course, a cover group for my blind political ambition, my naked political ambitions. And we already know that. But you're a good man. All of you are good people, but especially Sam. And I do have to go. Donate.joj2020.com. The people right now are asking for me to go to protests and to go to to conventions and to go to different events. They want me around. I would love to do that. In order to do that, we need the money to be able to do so. And so donate.joj2020.com. If you want to see this smiling, winning smile face at your convention or at a protest talking about the issues like police brutality and disproportionate use of force against marginalized communities, whatever else you want me to talk about, wherever else you want me to go, we need the money. Donate.joj2020.com. Sam, I love you. Brian, I love you. John, I love you. Jeremy, I don't really know you as well, but I love you too. You're a great guy.
You too.
Well, I love you, man. And you guys have a great night. And
we'll see you in 2 weeks, actually.
Yeah, you'll see me in 2 weeks. Sam,
Hooray!
Love you guys. Talk to you soon.
Love you too, Spike. Thanks for coming on. There he goes.
Okay.
Spike Cohen, your LP, VP. Oh, wait, this isn't the Spike Cohen show, much to Sam's chagrin.
I legit had no idea Spike was coming on for sure until like 6:05. Because he mentioned the idea of coming on as a guest for like saying briefly, but I had no clue. So let's get back into it a little bit.
Yeah.
So Sam, he brought up the Minneapolis, the whole Minneapolis thing going on. What are your feelings on the Minneapolis protests? And do you think any level of violence, whether it's private property or against police stations or any of that, is in any way justified?
I don't condone the destruction of property or anything like that, but I'm not going to expend any kind of I have no interest in making the focus of this situation the destruction of property and oh no, Target got looted. That's not where the focus of this should be. It should be on police brutality and an unheard people having no other method to make their voice heard, being driven to the point of rioting. That is what this is about. It's not about Target. It's not about Advance Auto Parts or whatever else. I have, like I said, I don't condone the rioting or the looting, but I don't want to make that the focus here.
Do you think there's any kind of moral difference between the people going after Target or stores or anything like that and the people who ended up burning down that police station? Or do you kind of see them as the same? You have kind of the same statement on both of them?
Well, I mean, I don't condone the police station thing, really. At the end of the day, honestly, I don't really condone that either. But I mean, it does make a lot more sense than burning down a Target or something. It's like that.
You're gonna burn something.
It's like, yeah, I mean, that's their nest. So that, makes more sense. It's just the thing that I think is imprudent about it is it's like, okay, well, now the taxpayers are going to get screwed and have to pay for a new police station, probably a nicer, bigger police station for these guys. And they're going to get to reap the benefits of this beautiful new station that everybody's going to have to pay for so that they can oppress the people even more with it. It's just, I don't think it's, really prudent in the end. It's cathartic and it gives good optics and it has this whole take back the power narrative to it. But it's like, ultimately, I don't think it's very effective.
Yeah, we threw up your meme, which is awesome. I love it.
Me too.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
That's my favorite meme you've ever made.
Yeah,
Thank
definitely
you.
my favorite meme that you've made. And and this whole issue is pretty close to me. I mean, literally. I'm not far from Minneapolis. A lot of friends that live in Minneapolis, and waking up to this Tuesday morning, kind of rolling out of bed, scrolling through Facebook and seeing this, and I'm like, oh boy, it's definitely turned into the longest week of my life. Being so close to all of this, I'll be honest, I was kind of happy to see the precinct go up, and so many people talk about it and, this kind of thing, but they actually managed to do it. I went down I was down there, not too far, Thursday night. I was down there, protesting and yelling at cops and, I forgot where I was going with all of that.
It happens.
As I do.
Oh yeah, it happens to me all the time. But and there's just so much to that. That must have been incredibly overwhelming to be there that close to it and actually see that. I mean, it's mind blowing just looking at the videos and the pictures online. To actually be there must be something completely different.
It is.
So, we talked a little bit about the presidential election, like in the context of the Libertarian Party. But do you have any idea, Sam, who you might be supporting, or if you might not be supporting anyone, or if you might be reluctantly voting for someone or anything like that?
I really don't know anymore. I don't have the calculus that I had beforehand. The Amash thing isn't just about Amash, and that is, I think that the Amash situation provided me a moment of clarity to the Libertarian Party, because say Amash had never run, like this just had never happened, I would probably be voting for, Joe or whoever else, just to, uphold the ballot access and things like that, vote totals and stuff like that for the party, just to help the party in the future in whatever way I could. But the Amash situation is not because of he in and of himself, and that just he's gone, I'm mad, I'm leaving it. That's not what it is. It really is. That is not just what it is. It's that I think that whole situation provided a moment of clarity for me to see what the party actually is and is not, and that is more why I'm leaving. But so I don't know who I'm voting for. I'm obviously, absolutely, there's 0% chance of voting for Trump. That's absolutely, that will never, ever, 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 ever happen. I have no intention at the moment of voting for Biden. I think Biden is terrible. He's a very good example of what the worst of politics was before Trump and Bernie entered the field. It's like that whole, Biden, Hillary, Mitch McConnell, George Bush, Rudy Giuliani, that whole Michael Bloomberg, that they're all like the worst of what politics was before it got exponentially worse. So I am absolutely no fan of Biden at all. I think he is terrible in his own way, and I do not have any intention of voting for him. And I agree tremendously most on the issues with Joe by an indescribable margin. And I think of the candidates in that regard, she's clearly the best. I agree with her more on anything, but it's like, she's probably great. I know almost nothing about her. I haven't even heard of her name before maybe a month ago, but I'm sure that she's great. I legitimately think that she's probably great, has good positions, has, the right idea, the right vision generally, and everything like that. But it's just, she's like a guest lecturer. It's like, that's just not a credible option. I'm sure that she's great, and it's just not really her fault at all. It's just that she is definitionally not she's not qualified for the job. If she won, she would not be ready to take office. And Trump wasn't experienced either. Yeah, he wasn't ready to take office either. There's no hypocrisy there. He is and was completely unfit in every regard. So don't try to bring that up.
I mean, I think the biggest issue with Trump isn't his experience. I think it's his positions. It's
not his biggest issue. No, if say like Bill Gates got elected president or something, that I would be indescribably less concerned about that than I was and am with Trump, even though they have the same level of no experience. It's not the problem, it's a problem.
Well, yeah, exactly. The experience part is negotiable, but the absolute shit show of a mindset that he's brought to that role is what the problem is. It's not about experience, it's about the hate.
It's even obviously, like, I feel like we don't even need to go over the racism and all of the other. We already know about that. We all agree on that. But it's another thing about it is just how he has no desire to step up to the occasion. It's like a lot of people thought that would happen for some reason. Mostly like establishment Republicans who just wanted an excuse to vote for him. But like, I think if you took an average guy off the street and just, thrust him into the presidency, he would have no experience or anything. But I think most people in that position would make it a priority to listen to like advisors and, people who knew what they were talking about and try to like step up to the role, be like, wow, this is, a very serious place that I've found myself in. I have a lot of power and a lot of influence. I better like do the responsible thing and, try to learn what I'm doing and absorb as much knowledge as I can from people who are more experienced than I am. But Trump had absolutely no interest in doing that whatsoever. and that was a big problem with him as well. Is that he knows nothing, but he has no desire to know anything either.
Right.
Yeah, he doesn't want to learn anything at all. He's very happy living in his own deluded world and with his worldview that he's completely made up. And that's what I think is so incredibly terrifying. It goes beyond delusional. It's something entirely else in his mind.
Yeah, and it's like this Twitter thing about how he got fact checked and says that that's censorship and evil and Twitter needs to be taken down. It's like you were wrong and you got fact checked. Like
it's funny seeing the Republicans who used to talk about how much they cared about the free market and stuff, and how much they like small government, wanting to regulate a private company because they said something about the president's tweet.
There's something about the Trump administration and presidency that it would be positive if he weren't in power, is the unraveling of fusionism, because I think fusionism was a mistake to begin with. The alliance of social conservatives and economic liberals or libertarians to try to join forces and pursue their interests simultaneously while ignoring what they disagree on. I think that was always a mistake. It was always incongruent. I think free markets naturally and inherently goes along with social progressivism, not, reactionary conservatism. I don't think conservatism as an ideology ever had anything to do with small government, separation of powers, free markets, natural rights, or anything like that. Even though, and I'm sure that you've been waiting for the word Reagan to be mentioned, even though Reagan was clearly...
I legitimately have it in my notes. I have my notes to the right side of my screen right now.
Well, I don't want to completely jump off on that yet, but obviously Reagan was the pinnacle of achievement for the fusionist strategy. He simultaneously did manage to satisfy economic liberals and libertarians and social conservatives at the same time. He was the president. He was extremely popular. That was the peak of fusionism success. And even though I do have some fondness for Reagan, which I'm sure that you're apt to jump on, I do still think that fusionism in general was a mistake, and that Trump's unraveling of that is in some ways a positive, because it's, we now have people like Justin Amash who have left the party and who are not, they're not under the delusion that they need to ally with these kinds of people anymore. You have the Justin Amashes now, and you have the Tucker Carlsons, and they're not trying to both be the same thing and try to work with each other in the same way or the same strategy. It's like they're distinct, as they should always have been. And in some way, I think that is a positive for politics now.
I mean, I still worry that there's some of that fusionism there. Just with the whole, it's like kind of like the team sports thing where where the Republicans have to root for the Republican and the Democrats have to root for the Democrat. I don't know. I know I have my issues with Rand Paul a lot. Don't get me wrong, but he has some libertarian leaning positions, but he still ended up falling in line with Trump here. Yeah, it's this whole thing of Trump's presidency is making people in the Republican Party, or even a lot of libertarians, choose really what it is they actually care about. And for Rand Paul and Thomas Massie and a whole lot of other people like that, they evidently care more about the optics of owning the libs and, in preserving some image of Americanism and what they are optically, rather than actual issues on the free market or separation of powers or anything like that. That clearly wasn't it's a defining difference between the likes of Amash and Massie, because when push came to shove, Amash didn't support Trump and left the party over it, whereas Massie has completely fallen in line and only takes positions contrary to Trump where he knows that Trump won't actually care, because it doesn't actually care about very many things. No, I agree with you on that. I definitely have a lot more respect for Amash than I do for Massie.
Certainly.
Going back to Amash for a second, I know you're leaving the Libertarian Party now. At least you plan on it, if you haven't officially already. I don't know where you're at. But if Amash ran in 2024 and got the nomination, would that change anything for you about the party, or it's still like, no, I'm done with this?
I would definitely support him. It would be hard to say if I would, declare myself a capital L libertarian again and rejoin the party. I would have to see, what happens between now and then, and what direction the party takes and things like that. I mean, this is surely hypothetical thing, so it's hard to say, but I would definitely support Amash in any position he ran for under any party.
Okay.
Maybe not the Republican Party. It'd be pretty hard to go back to the Republican Party unless they have a major moment of reckoning and apology, essentially, over Trump and Trumpism. I have not voted for one Republican for any office, even local dog catcher or whatever, since Trump was elected, and I do not plan to until there's a major moment of reckoning in the Republican Party.
I always wonder that if Trump loses in November, what happens to the Republican Party? What do you think will happen?
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see that.
They're going to have really nothing. I mean, everything is all bets are in on Trump, and if they don't win, I don't know what's going to happen with them.
It's hard to say because
I could see it just completely imploding.
Yeah, because Trump has reworked the Republican Party into being a cult for himself. He's made the party completely in his own image. And so say he loses, which he very likely will in November, it's like, okay, well, the Republican Party is going to know that, like, the establishment of the party is going to know that they can't run on explicit Trumpism anymore, that can't win an election, that was overturned by the public. They can't do that, but they can't also just immediately switch back to running Romneys. Like the base has tasted blood now, and they want more. They don't go to Trump and then go, oh shucks, let's go back to Romney again. Like the base would not accept that at this point. No. They've gotten this brash, loud, unapologetic, racist guy who brags about sexual assault and stuff. You don't just go back to mild-mannered, establishment politicians who maybe throw a bone or two on abortion or something like that. So it's like they're going to have a really hard line to walk in the future when Trump loses, because they can't just go back to the establishment, but they can't stick with Trumpism either. So they're going to have to get somebody who somehow walks that line where they can still appeal to moderates and like suburbanite moms and stuff who isn't as crass as Trump is, but they still need to maintain some degree of Trumpism for this fervent base that they've stirred up with him.
But here's the thing, y'all talking like Trump is actually going to leave office if he loses. I don't think he's going to. I was actually just having this discussion last night with a friend of mine, and I really think this election, and we think things are wild right now, I think this upcoming election is going to be something win or lose. And if he loses, I'm kind of here for it. I mean, number one, I want him out of there. But number two, I'm really, really geared up for this shit show of him claiming that it was illegal. I mean, he's already set the stage for that.
He's setting the stage for it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that is exactly where we are heading to. And I think it's going to be if nothing else, it's going to be a momentous moment in American history, if not world history, but certainly American history. And it's going to be, so much of this shit show has just been fun to watch from that angle. If you can just sit back and think, how is history going to see this? When kids are reading that in a history book 100, 200 years from now, I hope their mouths are wide going, oh God, how did this ever happen? This Trump experiment gone awry.
Yeah, I think that about virtually everything about Trump and the entire administration is like, it's so blatantly obvious what side the future is going to be on. And I legitimately cannot imagine thinking that as a Trump supporter that you're on the right side of history in anything. I can't imagine, defending child concentration camps and going, yep, history will see this one out. Like, I literally can't comprehend that.
No, I can't either at all. And I don't know if you all watch BoJack Horseman, but I love that show. And there's the character of Vincent, what is his name? Vincent Human or whatever. And, it's three young boys in a trench coat pretending to be an adult man. And it seems to me that's exactly what the Republicans have done. They're ignoring the fact that it's three experienced young boys in a trench coat and actually seeing this as an adult human and trying to stand by that as an actual viable candidate. So yeah, they've just completely shot themselves in the foot. I don't think the Republican Party is going to exist after this next election. Hell, I don't know if America is going to exist after this next election.
That whole horse thing reminded me of that whole thing about how the way Trump stands, he looks like a centaur with like the back legs cut off.
Isn't it weird though?
It's like,
have you tried it? Just leaning with your torso forward and just arms dead dangling. It's very unnatural.
I don't get how he can stand like that. Yeah, it's uncomfortable. It doesn't even look. Yeah, it's not right.
It's going to be bad for the spine. That's for damn sure.
Okay, so I think we need to get to 1 second. This guy right here.
Yes, there it is. Reagan 2020.
If I knew your positions right away, like if you just told me your positions and I had no knowledge of anything else about you, I would be kind of confused about your admiration for Ronald Reagan. So how do you square your support for individual rights, which even though like we have our disagreements, but I will generally say like you have a pretty large and passionate support for individual rights. Yeah. How do you square that with the admiration for Reagan?
Well, I mean, I did already explain this in a very notoriously long post that nobody read because I don't think anybody really cared.
Wait, 1 second. Why was that all in bold?
I have no idea. I have no idea. After it posted, I'm like, it was really, I mean, it worked out well, I guess, because I wanted as many people to see it as possible, and that was more attention grabbing. But I have no idea how it ended up being bold. And people were like, "Is this a tag group?"
You should make that a tag group. But yeah, I mean, for people who haven't seen that post, if you had to kind of sum it up a little bit, what would you say?
It's a pretty long post to sum up, but basically, the thing is that I, at this point, view him as more like a historical figure than like a politician. So it's like, I respect him in more or less the same degree that I respect like Thomas Jefferson or something like that, which it's like Thomas Jefferson owned slaves, and that's absolutely indefensible by any metric of moral humanity. But it's like, it's Thomas Jefferson. It's, you know, he pioneered the philosophy of individual rights, and he's you know a American treasure, and it's like that's more or less the same way that I view Reagan, is that like he's an historical figure, and what I see to respect about him is, you know, he lowered taxes, he helped ensure the dissolution of the Soviet Union, which was the greatest threat to freedom in the world at the time. He advocated open borders. He signed the Amnesty Act, granting citizenship to millions of undocumented immigrants. He constantly used the bully pulpit, even when his actions didn't live up to it as much as his words would suggest. He constantly used the bully pulpit to promote things like free markets, individual rights, smaller government, things like that. He was an advocate of liberal democracy on the world stage. Like, just there were a lot of things that I consider very, very, very positive about him that ultimately, I think, in a kind of legacy perspective as an historical figure, outweigh the negatives, in the same way that, even though it sounds disgusting to say, it's like most people would ultimately be forced to say that they think that the positives of Jefferson outweigh being a slave owner. That sounds disgusting to say that. It's like, that's, most people have, you know, been forced to accept that that's the case. And now, so it's obviously Reagan was horrible on the drug war, although I think he has less blame than either Clinton or Nixon for the drug war. But he was still obviously terrible on the drug war. He was, one of the most disgusting things that he ever did was making light of the AIDS crisis, even though it's like, you know, libertarian opinions on what should actually be done in the case of a virus, or not a virus, but like, you know, I guess it is a virus, but, you know, any kind of major disease, there's argument of what a libertarian government would actually do for that. But the fact that he just downplayed it entirely and played it off as a joke a lot of the time, like, I mean to say this, but like it's just gay cancer. Like, that's disgusting that people said that, and that, you know,
Gary North.
Gary North still says that.
But yeah, I think the things that disturb me most about the Reagan legacy and him as a person are not probably the things that most, at least libertarians, would say. The things about him that I am most disturbed by are his downplaying and making light of the AIDS crisis, and that horrible, disgusting comment that was unearthed between him and Nixon on that tape after the UN meeting.
Now, what about the interventionism in South America and all that?
I mean, I hope that you know that I am a non-interventionist, so I don't support any of that
I meant, do you have like a big problem with it, or?
Well, yeah,
Okay.
I do, in the same way that I have a huge problem with, the drug war that he supported and all these other things. It's just the reason that I cited those two things in specific, the AIDS thing and the Africans comment, was that I think those are the things that speak most, or would be the best pieces of evidence against him as a person. Though I think those are the things that cut most of his humanity as an individual person. And that would be, if somebody was trying to make an argument against him for being a force for good of or even having had a positive vision in the abstract, I think those would be the best pieces of evidence against that. Say no, but I mean the context of again, I explained all this in the post, but I think the context of that was that he's a stupid old white guy born in the 1910s, raised in a society of explicit, intense white supremacy. And I still think that he was less racist than the norm of people at his time, and that he made that comment in a heat of anger where people often say things that they wouldn't say in other contexts. But I in no way defend the comment. It was absolutely indefensible. It was a disgusting comment he should never have made. Nobody should ever say anything like that, and I have no interest in downplaying it or defending it whatsoever.
Now, the whole thing where, even though you admit he has some negatives, you think a lot of the positives could outweigh that, and the historical figure thing and all that. How would you feel if I said the same thing about Rothbard?
I don't think that Rothbard has any positives to look at. I know you've brought this up a lot before, and that's always been my answer. It's like, well, Reagan has these huge positives and these huge negatives. Well, Rothbard has these huge negatives, and...
Well, I would say he made a lot of philosophical contributions. I mean, he wasn't... I mean, we don't talk about late Rothbard. Obviously, we've had our... Because we can both acknowledge that late Rothbard was just... I don't even know. He's senile or whatever. But I mean, he was a very...
excuse.
Easy excuse. I was being kind of facetious with it. It was he was either senile or he was, I don't know, he was just making a bad decision. I mean, just his views changed in his old age. I don't know what else to say about that, because he was definitely different when he was younger. I mean, he was a big...
don't think his views changed as much as you would like to think that they did. And let's get Randy back on here to talk about early Rothbard and how he was no, paradigm of grand social justice either. But these undertones were always throughout his works. It's just that when in the 90s he went ballistic and completely...
He was a huge open borders guy. He attacked, I think it was the 1980 LP ticket, because they weren't fully open borders, and he was basically saying that was totally unacceptable.
Well, it's like you could find a million people in the Mises Caucus who claim to support open borders too. It's like, just taking that position doesn't mean that much to me anymore.
No, but I mean,
in and of itself,
he basically pioneered the philosophy. I think he's actually the one who came up with the name anarcho-capitalism. He was a huge supporter of natural rights, individual liberties.
Another thing here is I don't see that as a positive. I don't see pioneering anarcho-capitalism as a positive. So that's hardly something I'm going to attribute him to counter his, horrible comments and things.
Even if you don't think anarcho-capitalism would work, I mean, there are a lot... Do you not think there's a lot of anarcho-capitalists who actually do care about individual liberties and things like that, and maybe you think they're misguided or they're wrong? And
I think there are, and it's not just the ANCAPs. It's like, I think anarchists in general, I don't really have a problem with being an anarchist in the most basic sense of that's your goal. I have a problem with people who try to brand themselves in such a way that we will never get anywhere near that. It's like Brian Kaplan. Apparently he's an ANCAP. I didn't even know that when I read his book, and then I was told that after. It's like the fact that I didn't even know that, that's a good thing. Like, he can have that goal, and that's fine. I don't care if he does. It's like, what your end goal is much less relevant to me than what your strategy to get there is within the libertarian movement. It's like, I would a million times work with a Brian Kaplan over working with a James Weeks or a Clayton Hunt once. Like, the fact that they are anarchists is not inherently the problem, although this is a massive correlation with anarchists, that they tend to be the kind of people who want to run on some ridiculous message and this stupid radical, positions and scare people awake or whatever. Like, we're going to get the message out and wake up the sheeple, and they're going to just popcorn into libertarians overnight. Like, I think that's stupid, but that's not inherent to being an anarchist. You can be an anarchist and be like Brian Kaplan and support like incremental policy change.
I mean, I'm fine with incremental policy change. I still argue for something bigger than that because I want to move the Overton window along the way. But I mean, I'll take like a tax cut or something like that, or I'll take like withdrawing from one war and then argue for withdrawing from the next. Like, it doesn't have to be there's something called, you haven't read a lot of ANCAP stuff, but there's something called the Rothbard button, which is basically the idea, like, you press a button and like every government's gone. But I don't need just that. Like, I'm willing to take the little steps along the way too. The
problem with that is that the full advocacy of anarchy, I think, prevents those incremental steps from being taken. I think that when you say we need to, abolish the government and there shouldn't even be a military and all of these things, the average person is going, okay, well, you're a lunatic. I'm not going to listen to what you have to say. Like, talk to my parents or something, just random old people who live in the suburbs. It's like, the second you say anarchy and espouse that as something that you support, they're not listening anymore.
I mean, there's a way to frame a different message for different people, kind of thing. I don't think you need to go in saying like anarchy, but talking about voluntary interactions.
It's like taxation is theft too. That stupid hat that Dan wears. It's like the second anybody sees that, they're not listening. They're gone. They're not entertained. They're not listening to your ideas.
I mean, I think it's an interesting idea.
Policy changes. It's like the second they see the stupid taxation is theft hat, they're done. They're gone. They're voting for Biden now.
Do you think taxation is theft?
I don't think that it's a productive discussion to have.
But just philosophically, I mean, I don't mean whether it's good strategically. Okay.
If you want to get granular about it, it's not technically theft; it's extortion by definition. But I don't think that that's a productive thing to say, and that's why you don't see LMNT posting that, because I don't think that that's helpful to the cause that we are all having. I mean, I
think it can make people look at government a different way, because people see government now and it's just always like, they kind of just consider it like already there. I mean, it's always acted that way. So obviously the way it acts is good. But if people look at government through a different lens, like look at government just as a group of people, I mean, I feel like that can kind of change the paradigm a bit. I mean, it did for me.
That's what so much of this like radical narratives and branding is about, is trying to like snap people awake. Like, we're changing the paradigm. People are going to re-examine their entire worldview, and that just doesn't happen. It's like when people are working, 2 jobs and worried about whether they can like pay their electricity at the end of the month, and like whether their kids' school is teaching them what they need to know. It's like, people aren't going to like have this sit down and like go read philosophy and like have this grand awakening. I just don't think that any strategy for which that is the goal, I do not think will be effective.
I mean, I don't think it'll happen overnight or something like that, but that's basically what happened with me. I mean, I used to be basically like a flat out neocon. I wanted to bomb everyone. I wanted a border wall. This is like 2007, something like that. I mean, I saw Ron Paul in the debates. I thought he was totally crazy. I was actually supporting Giuliani in the primaries that year.
Oh,
and then I know. Shoot me. But and then it might still be in my closet somewhere. I had a McCain Palin shirt.
I went and saw Sarah Palin.
But then after the election, I kind of re-examined Ron Paul a bit, and I was kind of like, this guy might be onto something a little bit. I think it was with the interventionism in the drug war. So then I read some like Reason.com and stuff. I got into that, and I kind of inched along a little bit. And I'm pretty sure Borders were the last thing to go for me in like 2011 or so. I've been calling myself an NCAP since 2011 or so, but it wasn't just like an overnight paradigm shift.
But that seems to be like what you want to inspire in other people is this paradigm shift.
I want to inspire the same like gradual paradigm shift. I don't mean like it's not that.
And even so, it's like
it's a long term.
I don't think I even want a paradigm shift, no matter how gradual it occurs. I don't. If a paradigm shift means shifting away from liberal democracy to anarchism, I don't even want that to happen.
But what if it means shifting from the dominant ideology right now to like a Milton Friedman ideology kind of thing? I mean, a different paradigm shift. Would you want that?
I guess if you could guarantee that would be the end goal or something, but I don't think that this whole paradigm shift mentality is the right way to try to go about things. I think incremental reform and getting in office and changing policy in a way that people see in their lives. This is helping me and my family. My neighbors aren't being sent to jail now. I have more of my paycheck left over at the end of the month. Opening up zoning has made housing more affordable. I think once people see the positive impact of libertarian policy change, I think that is more convincing than any kind of narrative shift or paradigm change. Like, I am not a consequentialist. Like, philosophically, I am more on the rights perspective. That's
me too.
Jason Weinman's the consequentialist, and he can stay in that field himself. But I think that generally consequentialist arguments are more effective in terms of electoral politics. I think that is generally the messaging that Libertarian Party should be using is, we should open up zoning because, it'll increase competition and housing prices will go down. That's like something that people can understand in direct relation to their lives. It's not this abstract philosophical thing of self-ownership. Like, that is ultimately what I believe in, is this stuff of rights and stuff, but I don't think that is compelling to the average person in the way that pragmatic policy change that affects their lives is. And I think that the latter is what should be the focus of, messaging.
But why not both? Because, even if like we got a libertarian into office, like let's say we got like, I don't even want to call him a libertarian, but let's say Bill Weld got into office and he changed some things for good. There'd be spinning from the other political parties and all that. Like there'd be a whole rationale for why this wasn't actually the thing that made it good or something else made it good. So why not like a mix of the consequentialist messaging and the rights-based messaging?
You can you can do that. I'm not saying never, appeal to rights in any regard. I think for guns especially, I think rights is probably the strongest argument to appeal to. So I'm not saying never do that, but you see very, very, very little of the consequentialist arguments from libertarian media, like ever. Like this libertarian social media or candidates, it's always this stuff about rights and self-ownership and the oppressors and monopoly on use of force and all these arguments. And it's like, most people, that's just not the language that they even use. It's like most people aren't very politically active, and if they are at all, they hear something and they don't go like sit down and ruminate it and study it and think about it for hours. It's just they're like, oh, that doesn't fit with, most people are in the mindset of the two parties and the way that they frame and talk about things and the issues that they address. That is where most people are, and that's where I think the Libertarian Party should meet them, not try to change their worldview.
Isn't there the possibility that using that different language could break them out of that?
Very few people, it will. It probably will. I mean, obviously it did for you and for a whole lot of other people. All these people who, I got, Ron Paul, he woke me up. I'm an ANCAP now. It works for some people, but I don't think that will ever work for enough people to win elections of significance and get in office and change policy.
Why do you think if you want to talk about elections and all that, why do you think Weld and Johnson only got, I don't know, what was it, 3% of the vote or something like that?
Well, for one thing, we need to look at the context of that, because that piddly 3% was by far the best that the Libertarian Party has ever done. It was a massive gain over any previous election. So that's, for one thing, we need to look at that. When everybody says, oh, it was such a failure, look where that got us, why would we want to try that again? Well, it was the most successful we have ever been. So,
but it was also an election with what's this? It was also in an election with two like wildly unpopular candidates.
Well, yeah. So I mean, this is the thing: is all along at being a member of the Libertarian Party, I knew that the entire deck was stacked against us, and that sucks, and that's very, very, very difficult to overcome. Like the two parties literally have a duopoly over the debate commission, and that if anybody threatens them, it's in their mutual interest to say, okay, well, we hate each other, but we both hate this guy, and he could threaten both of us. So the deck has always been stacked against us, but until recently, I thought that if we had, I technically still think that if the party had the will and the drive and the desire to overcome it, it could eventually overcome these external factors. The thing is that I don't believe the party has that will anymore. I no longer believe that they have the will to overcome those factors, and those factors are probably the answer to your question of why we weren't more successful. That, and that Gary came across as goofy, and it's just, I think Gary is a very smart person, and he was very experienced, and I think that he would make the right decisions and seek the right guidance, and that he was fully ready to take office, but he did not come across that way to virtually anybody. Anybody who saw him, they saw him sticking his tongue out. They saw him, he was portrayed by the media as just like the stoner. He just wasn't any good at public speaking. He couldn't make points very clearly. Just, he did not come across as what he actually is, and I think that was a big problem. There were prominent people who we would now call never Trump conservatives who said that they would have backed the ticket if it had been flipped and Weld was on top, because they have more faith in Weld. He's this, well-spoken, well-dressed, slick-talking Boston Brahmin from Massachusetts, the establishment or whatever, and they had more faith in him than this cowboy from New Mexico who they think is a stoner. And obviously the Aleppo thing too, that literally probably tanked him by 10 points alone.
You think you would have had 10 more points without the Aleppo thing?
In polling, that probably,
okay.
At least, the immediate aftermath of that was probably a 10-point drop directly from Aleppo.
It's so weird how they took that one thing and just, it's like the most memorable part of his campaign. Yep. for most people. That's probably the one thing that anybody could say is the stupid Aleppo comment.
It's gone even beyond him. Most people, you bring up the Libertarian Party and they go, Aleppo!
Yeah, it's true. You get that a lot, but let's go back to remember Harry Dean. Just going, on stage.
Howard Dean.
Howard Dean, yeah.
Yeah, Howard Dean.
I know, it's ridiculous where we've come that in 2004 going, yeah! That was disqualifying. This guy can't possibly be president. And now it's like anything that Trump does, things that Trump does 17 times a day would have been disqualifying in any previous election, but just how our standards have fallen.
Sure, that's my point. You've got Gary saying Aleppo, and the entire mainstream media goes wild about that. But Trump, grabbing him by the pussy and everything else, ends up being the one getting elected, and it's just a very upside down and incredibly. Sam, I know you spend some nights in bed in the dark crying about Justin Amash, leaving the party and forcing you out as well. Well, I sometimes too lay in bed naked at night, thinking about just how sad this world is in which we live, when a politician, bumbles one minor little thing, and then all of a sudden he's out of it all, and you end up with, Donnie Trump sitting there being the penultimate jerk that he is. And it is, I give you crap, Sam, but it's frustrating. I know that it really is. And I have my down days because of it too. That's for damn sure.
It's literally just like the party. Like if in another universe, Trump had run as a libertarian, the first stupid thing he said would have tanked him too. It's just that he had that Republican Party base and apparatus behind him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, which is terrifying, absolutely terrifying. This team mentality we have in this nation.
It's what's so destructive about the two-party system, and why I wanted a third party to come and be a serious alternative, because it's a pressure valve. Having a third party is a pressure valve to stop the two parties from imploding, because no matter how bad either of their candidates get, they'll say, well, we still have to beat that other guy. There's nothing that they won't excuse or forgive to beat the other guy, and that's just a death cycle. It's both parties locked together, spiraling to the ground to explode, and that's just where we are, and I don't see a release for that.
Would you see yourself joining a different third party, or is that out of the question?
In theory, sure, but in practice, as pathetic as the Libertarian Party is, and it is by far the biggest and most credible third party. And it's like, I've had people messaging me who I guess like me and like the page and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, let's make a political party. Like, let's do it, you and me, and let's get some other guys. Let's make a political
I have people say
that's just not a thing that you can do. It's taken
a lot of paperwork
years for the libertarians to get where they are, and it's like,
the best you could do is throw a party at your house with some chips and salsa or something, but you're not getting on the ballot.
That's the kind of party that we can form. So it's like, yeah, and I've had people coming to me with other things that they suggest that I should do or that we should do together. It's just all of them. It's like, I know that they have the best intentions, and that I think it's cool that they want to include me and stuff, and that they're thinking about me, but it's just like, all of these things are just not gonna happen. They're just not realistic. We're not gonna form, the American Liberal Party and run candidates like, Amash and Jeff Flake and stuff. That's just not gonna happen.
You don't have them on speed dial?
No, if not that this would, be the ideal of my party, but it could be a party that I could potentially vote for in comparison to others. Like, if, say, Jeff Flake and John Kasich and something came together and made a big media circus about that they were starting a party, and they had a bunch of big money billionaire donors and stuff, they could potentially create a viable third party. But it's like, me, I cannot just spawn a party. That's just not something that's going to happen. And it's just, a lot of people suggest that. They're like, oh, why don't you make a party? And it's just like, that's not how it works.
Not at all. It's a very naive approach to everything. I've had so many people bring that idea up over the years, and it's, because there is that idea of, should we move away from the libertarian name? Because like you're saying, Sam, there are a lot of problems there. I guess I was very surprised watching the convention. I tend to forget just how many buttoned up types remain within the party. And I have nothing against buttoned up types in general, but what I'm talking about is in attitude, where they don't want anyone who isn't a buttoned up sort of get off my lawn fuddy-duddy sort of type. So that's very discouraging. But I guess my idea is stick it out, stay in the party, make the changes that you can. Like you said, it is the third most viable party there is. So it's people like us sitting right here having this conversation, and some of the people, watching this and listening to this right now, not you, Sinbad, who are able to, make those changes and make those maybe a whole new party moving forward out of what we already have. So I guess what I'm saying, Sam, don't leave us. Stay with us, and let's work together and make things better and make the Libertarian Party great again.
The problem is that almost everybody in the party has some vision of that they want to change the party, but I don't agree with almost anybody on how it should be changed. I could count on one hand the number of people who have a vision for the party significantly similar to mine. It's like, I think that the biggest activism in the Libertarian Party seems to be anarchists or radical minarchists or audacious people who want to change the party into like an anarchist social organization, and they seem to be very effective in that, and that really is part of why I'm leaving. That's probably the biggest reason I'm leaving.
I don't know that it is the biggest, though, because I mean, if you look at the candidates from 2016 or 2012 or anything like that, like, I mean, obviously we have Spike as an anarchist now, but even Joe isn't an anarchist. I mean, I feel like they might be loud, and I mean, I'm one of them, but I don't think they really like run things or anything like that.
I agree completely, John.
It's hard to say who runs things, because I do think that if Amash had stayed in, he would have gotten the nomination on the first ballot. So it's like, say of that, you know, what you will and what that says about the party and who's in control. But I think that the anarchists are the most mobilized and have the biggest grassroots, which they probably take as a huge compliment. And in and of itself, that is impressive that they can mobilize people so effectively. And that they, like, I think bottom unity that Mike always talks about has been extremely successful in the past 2 years. I think that almost all of the goals of the bottom unity movement have been achieved now. And I think that the radicals and anarchists of the party are more united now than they have ever been. But that's a problem for me and people like me.
I mean, why not give Spike a chance, though? I mean, he's articulate. He's good at messaging. I mean, even if you don't agree, he's good at messaging. He's a good speaker. He's good at talking about the principles. I know you don't agree with this whole no shirts at the beach.
That's the thing, is that anything good he does is undone by the jokiness of it. He's like earlier when he was talking for ages, he's about this, oh, well, you know, we can turn it on and off. We can be serious, but then we can be satirical. It's like, you don't get to just turn it on and off. When you're satirical, you're that guy with the shirtless profile picture. You're the guy who talks about badgers and cheesy bread. You're the guy who ran with vermin.
Wait a minute. No. I'm gonna jump in there for a second. I mean, do you really, honest to God, have a problem with his profile picture?
Yeah. As a Libertarian Party candidate, yeah, it's very unprofessional and it's not a good image for the party.
Well, but it's not a party page. It's his own freaking personal profile page.
When you're a political candidate, you don't get to be a person anymore. That's what it is.
I think we need more people who are like people.
You don't get to do that.
I agree.
If we get an office and can change, it's like, that's a thing, is when, like, if you got Mitch McConnell on video smoking a blunt and shirtless, that would be hilarious, because that's the opposite of his image. And any other, like, if you got Mitt Romney doing it or whatever, like, their image is being boring, stuffy old politicians. So when they do something stupid and silly, it's hilarious and it's fun and it's humanizing. But everybody already thinks that libertarians are stupid, weird, oddball, silly people. So when they do stupid, oddball, silly stuff, that's not like fun or neat or cute. It's just like, yeah, that's those losers again.
Yeah, but you know what? I mean, I can understand that in some respects. Going out on an extreme limb, if Spike were sitting there like snorting coke off of a
Vermin was smoking weed in the debate.
Well, yeah, but what's wrong with that?
It's weed
right now. I mean, it's weed. That doesn't count at all. But my point is,
it's about who it's coming from.
Look, man. I'm going to say this, Sam. I mean, if y'all so tied up in some sort of conservative view that a dude can't be on the beach without a shirt on just because
that's not what it is, and you know it. That's a dishonest framing. It's not about the beach.
It is not a dishonest framing, because he's on the beach. He's not in a strip club. He's not,
Okay, but his profile picture isn't on the beach. He was on the beach when the photo was taken, but his profile picture is not on the beach. It's on social media. It's in the public square. Like, if there was a photo of Spike at the beach shirtless, that nobody would have a problem with that. It's not the
taking a picture of it is the problem.
Having that as his photo on social media when he's the vice president of the Libertarian Party is the problem.
So if it was
Sam, I just want to tell you something. Sinbad agrees with you, so maybe you'll want to rethink your positions.
So what if it was just on his profile? Would you have an issue with it?
No, it's if it's just like, he and his wife went to the beach, for vacation, and he was shirtless because he was at the beach, and that's just somewhere on his profile. He made a post about it 3 years ago. That doesn't.
What if he made a post about it yesterday?
that wouldn't be a problem. It's just, I think that a candidate, once they become the nominee of a party, that anyway, when a candidate becomes the nominee of a party, that should be like their priority, not their personal life. So I mean, even if somebody's like, oh, I went to, just posting out anything that they did in their personal life, even if it's not shirtless or whatever, I think that's just kind of like weird. It's like, once you become the nominee of a party, that is who you are, not, like I just said, once you're a politician, you don't get to be a person anymore.
So I couldn't be a politician, and neither could Brian?
No.
Apparently not. Apparently not. Hey, what do you think of my hair here, Sam? Look at that. It's all like shaved off, and it's
kind of a fashy haircut, really.
Does that like make me some sort of a degenerate that I could never run for an office or something?
It's kind of fashy.
No, it's not fashy, dude. My hair's it's dyed. Like, you can't see it on the stream, but it's like it's got like blue in it and stuff.
The super short sides and long on top, that's a fashy thing.
Well, it can be, but it can also be incredibly fucking rock and roll. Which that's what I'm
See, and it's like a thing that people like Mike and James and other people say is this, that I am like just disgusting and have this horrible thing of that I don't want people to be able to be themselves and stuff like that. It's like, that's not the problem. I have absolutely no issue with people doing whatever, go be shirtless and dye your hair. I don't care. I have a problem with doing that in the capacity of being a candidate or in the convention of a political party. That's not where that goes. You can do all of that, and that's perfectly fine. Be who you are and do what you want, but in a serious context, be serious or you won't be taken seriously. And that is why I think that people don't care about the issues, is because when you are a vermin supreme and you talk about police brutality and all these things, but have a boot on your head, you're making light of these serious issues. And that's why I don't think that they care.
I think that mixing boot on your head with a guy being topless in his profile picture are just two incredibly different things. And I think it's a slippery slope. If you start comparing those two things, where does it end? And if you're so concerned about those sort of optics, that eventually is going to carry over into your actual view of what individuals do. And I think it's just a really dangerous way to look at things.
I just don't think that that's the case. I think there's a pretty clear line between being in a professional capacity and not. That seems like a pretty clear line to me of, if you're in a professional capacity, you should be wearing a shirt and not having a boot on your head.
It's Facebook. If we're still talking about that, I mean,
he's the official nominee of the Libertarian Party now. That's who he is and what he is.
So if you're a businessman or a lawyer or something like that, can you have a shirtless profile picture at the beach?
No, you shouldn't be doing that.
Why?
Because you can do what you want if it's your business, but I don't think it's a good decision.
But it's like people take their shirts off at the beach. Like, it's just...
Yeah, but your profile picture isn't the beach. It's Facebook. It's social media where people are seeing you in a context that is not the beach.
But they're seeing you at the beach.
Yeah, but why are you having that as your profile picture?
Why not?
Yeah, because why not?
It's unprofessional.
It's not like you have...
If you go into a lawyer's office and the guy's not wearing a shirt, I'm not staying there. I'm not using him as my lawyer.
He's not... It's different to not wear a shirt in a lawyer's office versus a picture at the...
How is it different?
How isn't it different? Good God.
Really?
Just like it's different to take your pants off in the bathroom versus taking your pants off in public.
Okay, so you're still talking about the beach thing. Yeah, it's different to be shirtless at the beach versus in your office. I'm saying it's not that different to be shirtless in your office versus on your Facebook page. That is what I'm saying. The beach thing is a stupid distraction that all of you are dishonestly talking about.
It's not dishonest. It's a picture from the beach.
Literally not one person cares that Spike was shirtless at the beach. Nobody cares that Spike was shirtless at the beach. That's not what it is about. It's about that his profile picture is shirtless. The location in which the picture was taken is not relevant.
I just don't get it. Like, it just, honest to God, I just don't get it. Like,
it's like I wouldn't care so much if you guys and everybody complaining about it weren't being so dishonest about it, because you know that it's not about the beach.
I'm not being
You
dishonest.
know that nobody cares that he was shirtless at the beach, but everybody still says, "Oh, why is everybody still mad that he was shirtless at the beach?" That's not what it was about.
I have a shirtless profile picture from a beach, but I don't walk.
You're not running for office.
But I'm gonna be getting into like professional work. I mean, like,
and when you do, you should change your profile picture. You're not running for. I don't care if your pic is shirt. I still think that that's weird in general, but I don't care that your profile picture, because I don't like being shirtless. I don't like shirtlessness.
Do you wear a shirt at the beach?
I don't usually go to the beach.
Wow, my mind is absolutely blown after
but
this.
Regardless,
and then wow, I look, here's the deal, Sam. Like, I'm not going to continue debating this because I just don't get it. Like, no matter how it's like most math for me, no matter how much you like explain it to me, it's not going to sink into my head because I am just not going to accept this idea.
Politicians are not people. They are robots to convey a message in positions. Once you become a politician, you don't get to be a person anymore.
But isn't that part of the problem? Why we have such a horrible government? Yes, it is.
No, the problem is that we have policy that dictates we put kids in cages and cops kill black people. That's the problem, not the fact that we're wearing suits. That's not the problem. I think that distracts so terribly from what the actual problem is when people are throwing more of a fit about the existence of a suit and tie than kids in cages. That is what the problem is.
It's not the existence of a suit and tie. Like, I've worn a suit and tie before, and I've also taken a picture at the beach. Like, they're
James
not
and
mutually.
Clayton have more problem with a suit and tie than they do with kids in cages.
I know they have problems with suit and ties, but I really do not think that's true. If they could abolish one, I think they would abolish kids in cages.
Yep. That's not what James's actions speak to. Knowing that he's sabotaging the party by stripping naked. That was more his catharsis of stripping naked and making people mad and having fun was more important to him than the success of the party in getting elected and stopping atrocities.
Yeah, I just don't know, man. I mean, you seem like a nice guy, Sam, but I guess we're not going to the beach together anytime soon, and we're certainly not going out to any fun bars together because...
To Sam's credit, it is Washington, so it's cold.
It is. That is true. That is very true. I mean, you should probably leave your shirt on when it's cold like that. But, I mean, seriously, I don't get it. I don't understand why it's such a big deal. I mean, I can understand someone going, "Oh, I don't think that's a good thing," but it's become such a huge deal, which is what is such a problem for me. Like, it's not that serious, people.
The reason it's a big deal is because of the dishonesty of the argument, that everybody still says that it's about shirtlessness at the beach when that everybody knows that is not what it was about.
It's about a picture of shirtlessness at the beach. It's the same.
Yeah.
Like, it's the same like subheading.
Shirtlessness at the beach. It was shirtlessness on his profile as a candidate
from the beach.
All I've learned is all of these people that are big mad about it are people I just don't really care to hang out with. Maybe I should go start my own party.
Well, I don't see the Libertarian Party as a social club. That's another difference. I hate most libertarians. Most libertarians are awful. I wouldn't want to hang out with the vast majority of libertarians. That's not the point.
You and I agree on that. That's for damn sure.
Like, the point isn't to, like, I don't see the point of a party as, like, making friends or hanging out. That's not what it's for. It's for getting in office and changing policy to make people's lives better.
No, I agree completely. Oh, Sinbad's going to start a party with me. Thank you, Sinbad. We really appreciate you because Nazis aren't inherently evil. Yeah, that's really good. Well, Sam, I want to say to you, you always hold up very well under this sort of pressure, regardless of the fact that it does sometimes sound like you are having a major meltdown and crying into your pillow, which might very well be the case. You certainly do hold up very well and can certainly maintain your argument. So for that, sir, I commend you and just encourage you once to go out, take a picture of yourself shirtless, make it your profile picture, and you too might find it incredibly cathartic.
No, I'm not going to do that. But see, just in what you just said, I think is frustrating that No, I am not crying into my pillow, but yes, I do take this very seriously, and I was very, very distraught at what I saw as the collapse of the Libertarian Party as a beacon of hope, because I wish I didn't care. I wish I didn't have to care so much about politics. I wish that this was just a stupid hobby and that I could just drop this and go start knitting or something. But it's like me not paying attention to what's going on or getting out of politics won't stop the atrocities that are happening. And that is what I think is paramount, is actually changing things. People are suffering by the tyranny of government, and I want to do anything in my power to make it so that that stops. And so anything that I see as getting in the way of that end, I see as an enemy of liberty. So when James strips on stage and destroys the credibility of the party, even though he espouses libertarian positions, I don't see him as an ally to the strive for liberty, because he's destroying the cause of liberty.
I can understand that argument. I certainly can, even if I don't necessarily agree with it. But I just don't think that's the same as Spike not having a shirt on at the beach.
I thought we're past that now. But no, just how you were like, I bet you cry into your pillow every day, like mocking the idea that I should be very concerned about this. It's like, I think that's wrong to mock the idea that somebody would take politics very seriously. It is serious. It's literally about people's lives.
I take it.
We all take it seriously here.
I take it very seriously. That's not the point that I'm making, Sam. The point that I'm making is not all of us make these huge posts that later become massive copy pastas. And that's where that comes from. And I'm not discouraging you at all. I'm simply saying, again, it's a matter of optics. And that's how you end up being the one crying into your pillow.
But again, that whole thing of making that a copy pasta, that was me venting and saying something serious that I really felt and have wanted to say for a long time. And how do people respond? By making it a copy pasta, by not taking it seriously at all. It's mocking the idea that I would feel strongly enough about politics to write this thing. They don't think that politics is something that should be taken seriously.
I don't think that's it.
That's not it. Vermin Supreme is that they fundamentally don't believe that politics should be taken seriously, and I do. It's literally people's lives at stake. I think that deserves to be taken seriously, and that when you're trying to advocate police reform, you shouldn't be wearing a boot on your head. It
always goes back to that boot on the head.
It's just
I gotta get a boot
of everything. That's the most visible icon of his lack of seriousness and his joke status as a candidate. When you are talking about police brutality, wearing a boot on your head, everybody's looking at the boot and everybody's ignoring the police brutality. You're making a joke of a serious situation when he wears a boot on his head and talks about police brutality. That's insulting to the memory of every person who's been gunned down by police.
Do you think Vermin cares about people who've been gunned down by police?
Not in any rational sense. No, I don't think he does. Because if he was, he wouldn't be making a joke of it. Because it's not a joke. It is not. You don't try to advocate serious reform and then make a joke of it. That tells me he does not take it seriously and doesn't care. So no, I don't think he cares about brutality.
So every satirist in the world doesn't take the topics at hand seriously? I mean, that's where you're leading.
There's a difference between like drawing political comics or something and being a candidate making an ass of yourself. That's not the same thing. Most satirists are not the candidate. Being the candidate, you should be serious. Stephen Colbert is not a candidate for office, and if he was, he shouldn't act how he does as a TV host.
Man, my mind's just blown through all of this.
How is that hard to understand?
It's completely hard to understand. I don't understand.
How is it hard to understand that if you are running for office, you should act seriously? How is that hard to understand?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to accomplish. And Vermin was trying to
If you're trying to accomplish anything other than getting in office and changing policy, you're worthless as a candidate.
So basically sell out your message just so you can get into office and then probably
change policy and save people's lives. Yes, you should sell out whatever you need to do to get into office and change policy and save people's lives. Yes, that should always be the goal.
I think that's a very admirable goal, and I think that's wonderful, but that is not the freaking system in which we live in.
That's the only thing that matters. Literally nothing else matters in politics except for getting in office and changing policy. Nothing else matters. Nothing. That's the only goal. That should be the only goal of the Libertarian Party, is to get in office and implement libertarian policy.
What if changing minds will achieve that?
It doesn't. It absolutely doesn't.
So
if you're trying to talk about, it doesn't.
So if literally everyone changed their mind to being a libertarian, we wouldn't get libertarians.
That's not going to happen.
But putting it to an extreme like that shows that it could happen.
Yeah, but
it depends on how many minds you can actually change.
It could, but it can't.
What?
Like, in theory it could, but in the real world it can't, so it can't. The real world beats out theory.
I guess, I kind of see where you're coming from. It's I don't care that, somebody doesn't have a shirt on in a picture at all, but you're not gonna. I guess I could see, kind of where you're coming from. You're not gonna really get anybody's attention in, let's say, your local news page comments with that kind of presentation, with either shouting taxation is theft, or if you don't have a shirt on in a picture. I do get where you're coming from.
You're the only one here, evidently.
I don't necessarily agree with it, and in some ways, Spike's and Vermin's messaging definitely caught my eye. And I kind of went further, knowing what they actually advocate for is great. But yeah, I do get where you're coming from. You're not going to convince anybody in the local news page, comment section with a boot and no shirt. I get it.
But, Drew just posed a really good question over in the chat, and I'm going to pose this to you. Why does Sam refuse to be a Democrat or Republican, since he's making a do whatever you need to do to get the lesser of two evils point? Can you answer that, Sam? I think that's
I can absolutely answer that happily, and it's because both parties support policies that are detrimental to the people of the country and the world, and I cannot get behind a platform and a party that does that. What we see is that the basis of the Republican Party, the heart and soul, the backbone, the foundation, the uniting glue that holds the Republican Party together, is racism and patriarchy and the preservation of unjust social hierarchies. That is the absolute core of the Republican Party, and Trump proved that when he got the nomination. It was never about small government or lowering taxes or separation of powers or natural rights. It was never about that. The common glue of the Republican Party is the support and continuation of unjust social hierarchy, and that is detrimental to society. Look at the Democratic Party. They're easily more moral than the Republican Party, which is an outright fascist organization under the age of Trump. I will make no attempt to say that they are morally equivalent. The Democratic Party, at least here and now, is far less bad than the Republican Party is. But I cannot be a Democrat because of this. They value the optics and presentation more than they do the actual outcomes. All Democratic Party policy is based on what feels good for the voters, what the voters can support and root for and vote for in office and feel, God, aren't I a good person? Aren't I helping the poor by supporting a higher minimum wage? Aren't I a good person for that? And I completely reject that narrative. They don't care what happens to people. They don't care what the impacts of their policy are in the Democratic Party. It's all about what makes them feel self-righteous and makes them feel like good people. Oh, rent's too expensive? Let's have rent control. It's about selling the easiest thing that makes people feel good about themselves. They can vote Democratic and then they don't feel obliged to do anything else to help people. They don't care about what happens to people. It's all about what makes them feel good. And it's the same way as the people who go to Africa, get a profile picture with some starving kids, go home and do nothing else. It's not about them. It's not about helping people. It's about you and making yourself feel good. And that's what the Democratic Party is about, and why I will not be a member of it.
So do you feel that way about, because I know you like Ocasio-Cortez at least somewhat. Do you think she's the same way?
In her economic policy, yeah, I do.
So she cares
these
about
horrible policies, and
I agree.
These policies. There's no evidence that these are all ineffective. Ask any economist, and rent control does not work. She supports it nonetheless. So obviously, she doesn't care. She can't care, or either she's just completely forfeiting her duty as an elected politician to actually look into the issues and look at what will help her constituents, or she doesn't care.
But do you think she cares on social issues but doesn't care on economic issues or something like that? Because I know
it's hard to say, but that seems to be the case because she does support great positions. That's why I think that where she is right now as just a representative and not like a presidential candidate or something, I think she's a net good for the country right now. I think the whole squad in general is a net good for the country right now because they are pushing the Overton window hard on important social issues. They're bringing, social criminal justice reform and immigration advocacy and opposition to corporate welfare and military non-interventionism and questioning the absolute undying devotion to Israel under any administration, no matter what they do. These are important things that the Overton window has been seriously shifted on by them. And right now, they're not doing much damage on economics because there's no, like Chip and I were arguing about this the other day, and it's the fact that they have achieved almost nothing is why I think they're less damaging. Because it's like you haven't gotten, the AOC rent control bill through Congress. That's not something that's happened. So
I find it kind of interesting that you're bringing up the Overton window, though, because that was kind of my argument with radical libertarians.
Yeah, but she's in office.
Yeah, I know, but you don't need to be in office to.
You do need to be in
window.
office.
So
nobody cares what you say otherwise.
So only politicians can shift the Overton window.
More or less, maybe like Bill Gates or something like that.
Not like news hosts or something like that.
Yeah,
or
probably
like popular figures
Cooper or something probably could, or Lester Holt or something like that.
If like a satirist became popular or something like that, they would have the chance to shift.
Yeah, but he's not, and he isn't.
I'm just saying. I mean,
and being a candidate is not going to go about that. If Vermin wants to be a social activist and go to demonstrations and, be the who he wants to be in a non-explicitly political electoral context, that's fine. And I might even support, probably not. No, I wouldn't support him, but
why not?
That's fine if he wants to do that. If he wants to just be an activist and, I think that's cool. That thing where he like stood between the police and protesters to like protect them. That's awesome. And if he wants to go around the country and do that, more power to him. I think he
does.
But don't be a candidate. Don't run for office. Don't try to. If you want to be an activist, be an activist. And if you want to be a politician, be a politician. Don't try to be both.
But
especially,
I mean, what if a political run would get you more attention for your activism and make it easier to shift the Overton window? Like Drew Breckus just said in the comments. I mean, alt-righters shifted the Overton window with internet memes. So I mean, it is possible to shift.
That really isn't what happened. It's not. Everybody loves to say like, oh, like memes and 4chan got Trump elected. It wasn't that. It was just that the electorate of the country, at least in the way that the electoral college shifts who is in control, they're just racist and stupid and like Trump. That's what it was.
You don't think the memes helped?
I didn't say that it helped, but they did not by any means cause it.
Could they have put him over the edge?
Elected by memes. No, it didn't put him over the edge either. Trump did not win because of memes or 4chan or Milo's tour of college campuses. None of that is why Trump won.
I mean, if it provided like those like last few votes to get over the hump,
I don't think it did. Also, it's like Trump didn't really even win the election. He lost the popular vote. It's only by our horrible, undemocratic, unrepresentative system that he technically sniped the election.
I mean, but that's what our election is. Like our election, I mean, argue against it all you want, but like that's what winning the election means. It doesn't mean getting the highest percentage of the popular vote.
He technically won, but he did not legitimately win.
I mean, I hate Trump as much as anyone, but like, that's how the elections.
Yeah,
work.
but they're illegitimate.
I mean, I think all elections are illegitimate, but
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't think all elections are inherently illegitimate, but the presidential election, the way that the Electoral College is structured, is an illegitimate, undemocratic system. And for anybody you probably know that I don't just support a direct popular vote, but a lot of maybe people listening don't. That's not what I'm advocating and not what I support, is just, everybody votes and the majority wins. I think that we need the abolition of the Electoral College in addition to something like a ranked choice or range or approval voting system. I do not think that a direct popular vote is the right answer either. And also, just to throw this in, no, abolishing the Electoral College does not mean we have direct democracy. And no, that we are a constitutional republic does not mean that we are not a democracy at all. Because a lot of people get that wrong. They say, well, we're not a democracy anyway. We were never intended to be a democracy. We're a constitutional republic. Cool. Constitutional republic is a form of democracy. Congratulations.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't disagree. You're just getting into semantics there at that point.
Right. Absolutely. I hear that all the time, though, especially from the patriot types.
Yeah, stupid boomer conservatives love to say, well, we're not a democracy and we were never supposed to be. It's like,
get the government out of my Medicare.
Yeah, exactly. Put your shirt on, boy.
Okay, well, do we have anything else? Or
So, Sam, I've
okay.
got one more thing.
Jeremy's got something.
So, I remember getting in a big fight with you about the carbon tax thing. And the more that I thought about it, I actually more or less agree with you as a step toward, obviously taxation is extortion and all that stuff. But, ultimately, I think it's, better than what exists now. So I wanted to let you know that.
I appreciate that very much.
And I still disagree.
I mean, philosophically, I don't support it. On its base, from my philosophy, no, I don't support it. But I see, where you come from and what it, and what it, and the benefits of it. So, just wanted to let you know that.
John, do you oppose it just in theory, because you're an ANCAP, or do you think that it would be if you could, flip a coin and change the policy right now, would you not, do you think it's bad policy even just as an incremental change, or is it just
I would not create a new tax in any regard, across the board.
What if it was called a fee instead of a tax?
No, it's the same. It's the same thing. It's just a different 3-letter word.
Nice try.
That's basically what they did with the whole Obamacare Supreme Court decision, going back between it being a tax and a fee.
Should we get into the carbon tax thing, or are we trying to conclude this because it's very long?
Wow. We have been on air for 2 hours and 15 minutes.
I think we should bring you on another time.
That would.
I agree. Yeah, that'd be fantastic. You're a really fun guest, Sam.
Yeah, this has been a good one. I feel like we can bring up some current events at the time or something like that in a month or two and see how things are going.
Are you going to blindside me with people that you didn't say were going to be on the podcast and then have them talk for 2/3 of the entire time?
Well, he didn't really talk for 2/3 because we've been on a crazy amount, but legitimately,
am I going to be subject to captivity in a campaign ad for a candidate I don't support on the podcast has my name on it?
We gotta have Vermin come out of nowhere next time.
Yeah, or let's just not do that.
Biden on him.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna call up Creepy Joe tonight and see if he'll come on the show. Hell, let's just get Trump on here. That'd be a lot of fun. Honestly.
Biden couldn't figure out how to work this. Come on.
That's very true. And neither could Trump.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get the ghost of Reagan to come on if he'd remember the time.
This was fun.
Yeah,
this was great. Sam, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for being here, and thanks for sitting through the Spike campaign ad and all that and being a good sport about it.
Yeah, and don't worry, we'll make sure we blindside you again next time.
Oh, I have no doubt.
And there it is, another edition of your Fakertarians live on the air on this May 30th, 2020. This show went all the way into infinity, and that's the way we like it. Everyone, as we wrap things up, take your shirts off, throw them away, and burn those shirts. And when you see Sam, tell him, Sam, go shirtless for freedom. Good night.
Good night.